Hey, everybody, welcome to Ad Victoriam. I'm Caleb. This is Zach.
Hey, guys.
And every day we are sharing stories to help you win in your faith, in your life, and in your relationships. Zach's going to get us started today.
Today we're going to talk about what do we do when we feel like giving up. So I recently have been in this moment exactly here from 1 Kings 19. And I think a lot of people relate to this moment. I love that it's recorded because it is just such a relatable experience. So Elijah comes off this literal mountaintop high of God just absolutely showing up. He's confronting the prophets of Baal, and not only in just this is what's right, this is wrong. They put it into a competition, and it's literally so like visual of you try and do it and they can't do it, and then God just brings down literally like a bomb of fire and just evaporates the water and the offering and like the stone. It just says like everything's just absolutely, I just imagine like a scorch mark left and nothing else. And he basically made a deal with them that's like, if I win, you're dead. And I think that's because they were also trying to kill him all the time. And it's very much, now that I say it on the podcast, it's very much like David and Goliath, where David just shows up and is like, I'm going to do it. God's on my side. And that's the same thing here. And what's interesting that I think gets left out a lot of the story of David and Goliath is the challenge of Goliath is, if we do a 1v1 and I win, all of your people become our slaves, and vice versa. And I think that's also the reason everyone was afraid to fight Goliath, because if they failed, they let literally everyone down. It wasn't like we win and take your stuff, we take you too. And it's like, that's a scary challenge. And so that I feel like is kind of this next challenge here is it's like, all right, let's just get down to it. We're done fighting. Like whoever wins this challenge just wins, and you got to stake your life on it. And so literally that's the mountaintop high of just absolute amazing victory. And what comes next is Jezebel literally sends out a kill order on Elijah, and it freaks him out. And so he goes and he journeys into the wilderness, and he's hiding basically and just getting away from everything. And he just goes, God, I'm done. Like, you can kill me now. I'm just exhausted. Like, that was such a big, and I feel like that was just a huge victory. And he's not like continuing on in victories. Well, he could be, but what it feels like and what he sees is he has this huge victory and is immediately met with like, I think a counterattack, or like, well, let me just say, he defeated the prophets of Baal hands down. Their God never showed up. His God did show up, and he killed all of them. And yet we have somebody who still comes back and says, I don't care, I'm killing you anyways, even though he just won this like amazing challenge. And it's, when it's like, yeah, you put it, it's like, what if David defeated Goliath and then the Philistines just went, sorry, we don't care about that, we're fighting anyways. You just be like, what? Like, that's kind of where I feel like he's coming from. It's like, we had this huge victory. Like, how come it doesn't feel like a victory after this moment? Like, shouldn't she be like, oh my gosh, God just showed up, you killed 400 of my people? And and it's just so he's just kind of like giving up there, and then an angel shows up and says, hey, here's some food, which I'll love to say, I want to know what that bread tasted like. It's probably so good. Cooks him some food, he falls back asleep, cooks him some food again, and then and the Lord says, continue on, like go up the mountain. And then we all know the story. That's where God shows up, speaks to him in a whisper, and gives him another mission. And I think, so what I put down and what I journaled and what I want to talk about is, what do you do when you feel like you're at that point of, God, I'm done. Like, this is exhausting. And I think there's a huge note here, which is what I feel like I'm currently experiencing, is you keep fighting for the Lord. You keep pushing yourself. Like, I've been pushing myself into the word, into prayer, into trying to hear his voice, into trying to follow what he has. And then there are victories, but when there are moments after those victories that you're just kind of hoping for, like, I don't know, a moment to coast or something, or just like to rest in that victory. And if there isn't, man, it's exhausting because I've got 2 kids right now. I'm not sleeping very well. I'm not eating very well. My eating schedule's all over the place. And I think those 2 things together is the very just basic human, like, you need these things. But past that, I put down, it's like, okay, even if I just got food and got sleep, would I feel better? Yes. But I feel like there's more to that. So what I put down is I was like, okay, so when we talk about food in the Bible, half the time it's about food, half the time it's not about food, it's about other things. And Jesus talks about food in 2 ways, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast. One being like teaching, information, beliefs, ideas. And second, he just says, or when Jesus is hungry, half the time he says, I don't need actual food because I'm filled up doing the work of the Lord. And so I was thinking about that of like, okay, so when I'm tired and hungry, I need to think about what food I am consuming. Am I consuming more things on Instagram, more things that people suggest to me and I don't filter that, or things that people comment and pass their fears on to me and pass their anxieties on to me? What food am I eating? Because we all know when you're really tired, it's really hard to make a good meal just in real life. And so it's like in this moment when I'm feeling defeated, I'm exhausted and I'm like, Lord, I just want a little break. And I think it's very important to consider what you're consuming, and also understand that like continuing on in the work can also satisfy you in that way. And the second thing I put down is like, besides actual sleep, what is rest and sleep talked about in the Bible? And I just thought like Jesus is the shepherd and he leads me to calm waters and pastures and places to rest. And we all know, if anybody's experienced that kind of rest, it is a rest that is more than real sleep, like physical sleep. Like I could go to bed and sleep, get some nice chamomile tea or whatever and sleep for like 10 hours. That would feel really good, but that doesn't give rest to my soul. And I think that is the part here where Elijah's been just fighting so hard for the Lord and standing up for him and facing down all these huge oppositions. And then he's just like, God, I just, like, you can tell his inner being is exhausted. And so, yeah, I just like put that down. I was like, I think you can depend on the Lord for that rest too. And I think that's also why the Lord led him out into the wilderness, so that he was away from other influences, away from all these other things, away from other people that could speak into his life in this moment. And this is the last part I want to get to, is when you're in this moment, his answer is, Lord, take my life. I'm done. I'm ready to join my ancestors. And it's like, he continues on after this to do so many other cool things. And if he really did, the Lord just take him right here, we would never have Elisha. And we'd never have Jehu, would never be anointed. And he has an awesome quest of avenging Ahab's wicked family. And it's like, and Elisha does the other half of the amazing miracles in the book of Kings. So I just put down, like, when you're tired and exhausted and burned out, don't make a decision in that moment. It's like, find your food, AKA spirit, like go in the Bible and find your food, and also let the Lord lead you to a place of rest. And then in that moment, I think he gives Elijah the next piece of the puzzle, the next mission, but he also comforts him and says, you're not alone. Because that's the other part of Elijah's problem. He's like, God, I'm the only one out here doing this. And I love this answer where God goes, I have 7,000 people that are like loyal to me, that won't bow down to other things. So he's like, just remember, like, you're not alone in this, and there's other people in this. And I think that's just something we need to understand at all times too, is like, we are never fighting solo. And it's like, it might feel like it, and in your immediate situation you might be the only one fighting solo, but as we know, there are more than one Christians on the planet at this moment. We're not, as much as you feel like it, you might be the only person in your family, or the only person at your work, or the only person in like a town or a situation or something like that. But I promise you, there are so many other people. And I think that is one, why we need community, which is two, found through church 9 times out of 10. and also why you should volunteer and get in small groups and go find that community, because those are the people that, when you're in these moments, it's just so comforting to know you can rely on those people and they can help you out. So those are my thoughts. And so the last thing I put down is like, he basically is just giving up in this moment, and not necessarily giving up on God in the sense that he's like, God, I'm done with this, because we've seen other people do that in the Bible, but he's just saying like, God, I'm just done with like the mission, being a prophet, just all of this. And I was just thinking like, don't make a decision that moment, just hold on to God, because how many times does God say like, don't give up on me, and he won't give up on us. And so, and he also gets this amazing cool moment where he gets to experience like the voice of God in a really cool way, and it's like, that could be right around the corner. And that's, in my opinion, his reward for like doing this like really hard stuff. And he's like, God, I'm just tired and exhausted and no one's listening. And then he comes back and is like, but I'm right here and I've got more for you to do. And he invigorates him, I think, with that. So yeah, because then he goes out and he gets to work, and I don't think we ever, I guess I haven't read on the rest of it, but I feel like we don't really see Elijah in that moment again of just being so exhausted that he just like is ready to give up. So anyways, I've talked for a while. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a real moment for everybody at some point or another. The combination of being tired and disappointed at the same time can lead to like a depression of sorts, and I think we see that here of like you said, where he has this victory, he has this mountaintop experience, and I think for us as humans, we want there just to be a peaceful resolution once like the big victory is won, but life continues, the world still spins, and there is rest available for us, but it won't be rest because of our circumstances. We have to find our rest in the Lord. I like what you're saying about we have to find the spiritual food. We have to find real food, like real, literal, physical food. We need to sleep well. And I think you're completely right. Like those moments in time are not times to make life decisions. And especially when it comes to, am I following the Lord from here on out? Like, making decisions about your life, about your family, about like, again, the world will continue to spin. You can take a nap, you can get some good rest, you can seek the Lord, you can pray. And I think within all of this, we see that Elijah, takes his nap, gets fed by an angel, and then his next step is to travel 40 days and 40 nights to the Arabian Peninsula. He's in Samaria, which is southern Israel, or the southern part of Israel, and he travels 40 days to where God met with Moses coming out of Egypt. And that in and of itself is cool, because it's like God says, okay, you've got your rest, we're going to keep moving. And we've talked about this a long time ago on the Zac and Caleb show about trophies on the shelf as opposed to trophies on your belt. And that when God moves in our lives, those aren't times for us to say, like, look what God did from a recliner, looking at it on your shelf. Like, oh, like back in my day, like that type of living. No, it's like hook the sword on your belt. Like David, he kills Goliath, he takes his sword and he goes forward. And I think that's where, when he goes then to the mountain of the Lord, he saw God move in fire on Mount Carmel. He's seen God move in miracles, and now he gets to see God as, like you said, with him. Like, I am God and I am with you, and I am real, and I am moving in your life, and I am speaking to you, and I'm not leaving you alone, and there's still more to do. And what I think is really cool about Elijah's story is, if we skip forward, God gives him like, go anoint Elisha, go do all of these different tasks, and then we see him do a couple more miracles, and then we see him create schools of prophets, and he's teaching and he's leading Israel back, which I also think is cool, is when he says, I have 7,000 other people. We skip forward and we see him traveling around to different schools of prophets that he is leading, essentially. He's like, okay, so he found that community. He found the people who are following the Lord. But the point of what I'm saying here is Elijah, I think you're right, doesn't have another moment of that. He doesn't even get time to die. Like, he is literally doing the Lord's work until God takes him up to heaven himself in the fiery chariots. And I think that is such a cool illustration of Elijah's life of, like, yeah, he was just a man of action. God didn't give him much, like, quote unquote downtime. He was always working for the Lord. He was always doing incredible things from what we see recorded of him, up until the point where God just says, like, good job, let's go. Like, not even gonna rest here, Hunter. Like, I'm not even gonna give you time to die. Let's go. And I think for us, like, we can be encouraged by that when Isaiah says, like, I will lift you up on wings like eagles, like, you will run and not grow weary, you will walk and not grow faint. Where we see Jesus going for days at a time, just like doing miracles, traveling, preaching the gospel. We see Elijah, even in his own stories, he's running in front of chariots. He's journeying 40 days to the mountain. I think there are times in life where it's just busy, and we think, like, oh, we need this specific type of rest, but it's like, no, you need rest in God. And he won't let you burn out. We interviewed a guy years ago, and he said something that's always stuck with me, because dude just is traveling around the world, building essentially like a city in Honduras. Like, he's orphanages and, like, traveling and speaking, and, like, we were like, how do you do all of this? Like, how do you not burn out? And he said, when you're connected to the internal flame, you won't be burned out. And, like, what a paradox, what a mind bender, that when we are connected to God, who has infinite power, that we get access to that infinite power. And all that to say, just, like, encourage people, like, keep going. But what that looks like is not nose to grindstone or that grind set mentality. It's find those special moments with the Lord in the quiet, hearing his voice in his word, journaling, praying, and you will have the energy to continue in whatever it is that you need to do. Because if God told you to do it, he's going to go with you.
Yeah, I feel like, because that was the other thought I had, is like the grind of, like, oh, just going to keep going and put your head down. And I think that's when you have that mentality, that is the danger of going off path, or the danger of not seeing the warning signs that the Lord puts before you and stuff like that. And I think, because I think we, at least in my mind, when I think about, like, oh, I'm just going to put my head down and do it, that is disconnecting or operating in a way that I don't think is the intention of how just operating with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus as our master is supposed to be, because Jesus went, on the mountaintop and experienced, prayed with, his Father and stuff, but he was with his disciples all the time. And that's what he says all the time. I'm going to be with you. Pray continuously. Pray all the time. Not, I'm going to give you one assignment and I will see you in 5 years for your check-in. It's like, it's just not like that. And I think that's where, in this situation, right, can we find, I like what you said. Yeah, I remember that interview. It's like, he's just plugged in. Can we find, like, how to get plugged in, how to get connected? And I think that's a daily prayer and thing, but I think it's also different for each person of in what and in where do you pray and find the Lord. And I also think it's kind of like a thing too, like, what can you sacrifice that's getting in the way of that? And that's something I've been thinking about a lot, is like, are there things in the way that I don't think are things in the way that are leading me to more burned out experiences, because I'm putting my head down and just trying to grind through it. And it's like, so I'm getting filled up and then going and trying to work, overtime and running out of gas. And it's like, I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. The only other thought I had was, I think for men specifically, the, like, job and action aspect of life is so inspiring and appealing, and it brings a lot of like passion and satisfaction. And I think men are, designed to do things and have activity, and not to say that women aren't, but it definitely appeals to men more. Like when I feel like the Lord gives me something to do and I go out and I work on it, it is immensely satisfying. And yet it has the danger of going too far, going into that burnout stage where we just are like, I'm going to work so hard, I'm going to do this. And I think it's working with God on things. And that is the disciples walked with Jesus. They didn't run ahead and wait for Jesus to catch up, and vice versa. Jesus didn't run ahead and wait for them to catch up. And in the few times they are separated, what does it look like when they're on the boat without Jesus? A storm and chaos, and they're freaking out. And then Jesus walks to them, and the storm is calmed. It's like, okay, be in the boat with Jesus, moving at his pace. Obviously Jesus sent them forward in that situation, but I think it's an illustration of like, this is what happens when you go ahead without me. One, you might be going straight into a storm. And two, what are you going to do when I'm not there? And the answer is, we're going to freak out. And three, when Jesus does show up, he can calm the storm. And I think that's like kind of this picture here of like working with Jesus. Like, how did Elijah continue on through all of this stuff? I think he took this moment and was like, I'm going to pace myself with the Lord and remember that even after those high moments, it's like, there's still more. God will take care of me, lead me, guide me, and provide bread from an angel if I need food. And it's like, I want to be in that place that I'm so unconcerned about food that I'm just like, didn't the Lord also bring Elijah like food from ravens too? I think that's, so it's like, okay, food is covered. And it's like, I don't know, just very cool stuff.
Cool. Do you want to pray?
Yes. Dear Lord, thank you that we can be here. We can talk about this. We can read it in your word. And we can think about these stories. And God, I just ask that anybody feeling exhausted, defeated, disappointed, Lord, that you would lead them to a place of rest and bring them some food and some spiritual food that they can be nourished in their spirit with, Lord. And I just ask that you would then lead us and guide us and speak to us and help us to travel at a pace that we can stay with you, not lagging behind and not running ahead, but right with you, so that in every moment we can have conversation with you and learn from you. And I just ask that you be with all of us. Amen.
Amen.
Good stuff.
Thanks for listening. We will see you tomorrow.
See ya.